So hello everybody, my name is Lynn, and as Dr. Medkour already said, I'm a third-year PhD student in Dr. Kuzmin lab, and I'll be giving you this lecture today as a requirement for the pedagogical trainings that we have to do. So please just remember at the end to fill out the survey. Any constructive criticism will be greatly appreciated. So today's lecture is about nutrition and physical activity. So as you know, the class is entitled Nutrition, so if you're wondering why we're going to be talking about physical activity today, well, it's because healthy eating but also regular exercise come hand in hand, and our bodies will change how they store nutrients and use them depending on how active you are, and also your nutrition affects how well you can move. So in this chapter and in today's lecture, we'll look at what physical activity means, and the benefits that it brings, and the nutrients that support your active life. So I will start by a few definitions. So physical activity refers to any movement that you do that is generated by your muscles that lead to an increased energy expenditure. And a leisure time physical activity will include all movements that is performed outside of one's work duties. So such as if you do sports, if you engage in recreational activities, such as hiking, walking, or biking, or if you perform any exercise that is intentional as part of a structured physical activity. And another definition is physical fitness, which is a state of health and well-being that results from the interaction between proper nutrition and regular physical activity. This will include different components that we'll talk about in a few slides. So it includes cardiorespiratory fitness, musculoskeletal strength, and flexibility. So cardiovascular health, so there are a few benefits to doing physical activity, and in addition to fitness, so physical activity also has a lot of positive benefits for your health in different pillars that we will talk about. First, I'll talk about the benefits on your cardiovascular health. So being active will lower the risk of heart disease, stroke, and also high blood pressure. It'll strengthen your heart, and it'll increase the good cholesterol and lower triglycerides levels in your blood. It also helps with weight management and metabolic health, so it can decrease the risk of obesity and type 2 diabetes. And also it promotes greater lean body mass, and it improves insulin sensitivity, which is opposite to what you hear, insulin resistance. So it'll make your body really sensitive to insulin, and it will help with glucose regulation. Also, it helps with bone and muscle health. So it will lower the risk of osteoporosis, which is a condition that mostly affects women when they're in the older age. And also it will stimulate bone formation, and it will strengthen your muscles and your bones. Also, it helps with cancer prevention. So it will reduce the risk of colon cancer, but also it will enhance your digestive health by increasing gastric motility. But also there's a lot of research that's happening on the relation between obesity and cancer, and a lot of this cool research happens here at Concordia in the Perform Center, and keeping your physical activity at a good level will help with the prevention of cancer, but also other diseases. Also, it obviously helps with your mental and immune health, so as it will improve your sleep quality, your immune system function, and it will help reduce anxiety and mental stress. So I know that it's hard to find time to work out when you're doing your undergrad, but you should still prioritize physical activity, as it will help you perform better down the line. So there are different components to fitness, and I will give example activities for every component. So first is the cardiorespiratory fitness, which will involve aerobic exercises like walking, running, swimming, cross-country skiing. So this is anything that will basically improve your cardiorespiratory fitness. There's also musculoskeletal fitness, so which includes resistance training. This includes weightlifting, calisthenics, sit-ups and push-ups, and it has two pillars. So it helps improve your muscular strength, which is achieved through lifting heavier weights with fewer repetitions, but also if you lift lighter weights with a higher number of repetitions, this will help build muscular endurance. And also the third component of fitness is flexibility, which is sometimes overlooked. So this can be improved through activities like stretching and yoga, which are important to include in your daily or weekly workouts. So now that I showed you a few slides and given you some information, what do you think are the main components of physical activities, and which activities do you think improve each? So does cardio only matter and strength? Like, is it only cardio and strength? Is it a mix of cardiorespiratory, musculoskeletal, endurance, and flexibility? Is flexibility not important at all? Or, for example, doing yoga on its own will help you improve all components. What do you think? Yeah. Yeah. Cool. We're starting easy. It'll get harder. You have to keep paying attention. So just like a healthy diet, one thing that you need to do to improve your fitness is to have a fitness program. So there are several widely recognized sources that will help you make a sound fitness program. And there are guidelines that are here to help people make their own plans. So I will be showing you the Canadian guidelines, but there are different guidelines based on your conditions, but also different countries will have different guidelines. Some populations are more active than others. So these will be different from country to country, but at the end of the day, it needs to align with your goals and be enjoyable so that you can stay consistent with it. In order to make an effective fitness program, you should first make sure that it aligns with your individual goals. And it needs to incorporate the three components that we talked about before. So the cardiorespiratory, musculoskeletal, and flexibility components. And you need to include all of them in your routine. And you also need to make sure to support all of the overall health, your overall health as is defined by the Canadian Physical Activity Guidelines, which are shown here on the slide. So your physical activity is very important, and every little bit counts, and it comes from small changes that you can make in your daily routine. It can be done at home, at school, at work, at play. Anyway, it's just the way you should be living your life is an active life. So there are the three pillars that are prioritized. So the endurance part, which should be done continuously 4 to 7 times a week, and it's very important for your heart, lungs, and circulatory system. So this could be done by, for example, instead of taking the elevator, you can take the stairs. This will help increase your endurance. Taking walks outside, mowing the lawn, biking to get your groceries instead of taking your car out. So these are all small things that you can do in your routine. Also, it is important to keep in mind the flexibility component, which should also be done 4 to 7 times a week. A little gentle stretching, bending over, like just to stretch your muscles. So for example, now you're going to have a long lecture, so it's important to remember that when you're done, maybe you're going to want to stretch a little bit. This will help increase your flexibility. Also, strength is very important. So this should be done 2 to 4 times a week as per the Canadian guidelines. And this will include a resistance that will strengthen your muscles and also keep your bones healthy and will help you improve your posture. So this can be done at the gym or just by maybe walking with some weight on, like your laptop and your backpack or something a bit heavier. And all in all, you should also try to reduce sitting for long periods of time. So at home, if you're studying for long periods of time, maybe it's worth it to invest in a desk that you can work on while standing up and like stuff like that, small things. So scientists say that you need to accumulate about 60 minutes of activity per day to help improve your health. But this will depend on the type of activity that you're doing. So for example, if you're doing a light effort, such as light walking, gardening, stretching, you can do that for up to 60 minutes, but then the harder the effort, the lower the time. And so for example, the harder the exercise, the lower the time that is needed, keeping in mind that this will depend on the effort that you put in. So if you're weightlifting, you're probably not going to want to do that for an hour. 20 to 30 minutes will be fine. And there are just general guidelines that I discussed before. So this is always like a good guide to look at when you're unsure of where to start. So these guidelines will be different depending on your age. So obviously, if you're an infant, that has from 0 to 4 years, the activity level that is required for proper growth and proper health will be different than it is for different ages. So, for example, toddlers will need like around 180 minutes of physical activity, which is different from children that are between 5 to 11, which are now more active. And so then they will need around 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous, intense physical activity daily. And this will also change when you're an adult. You should accumulate more, so it should be around 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous intensity. And obviously, if for seniors, this will be different. So when it comes to the time, it'll be the same. It's just a different type of activity. But all this to say, like there isn't one guideline for everybody. This will depend on your age and the health needs that will come with aging. So another part of what makes a good fitness program is to make sure that you do different things and most importantly stay consistent. And in order to be able to remain consistent, you need the activities to be enjoyable. So you can include outdoor activities such as hiking, group activities like you can take the stairs with your friends, indoor workouts such as gym sessions, weight training, using the treadmill, and as I said, the Canadian Physical Activity will provide recommendations on the type and duration of the workout for the different types of workouts. So the third part is you need to challenge your body appropriately through something called a progressive overload. So you shouldn't just start, lifting 100 kilos. You need to go progressively. So the overload principle is imposing additional physical demands on the body to enhance fitness, but excessive physical exertion is not recommended. Your exercise should be done based on your physical limits, but you should still continue until you experience fatigue, sweating, and some increased breathing and heart rates, but this will depend based on the exercise. Now, a definition, which is, because these are always cool, hypertrophy will refer to the increase in muscle strength and size, which is something that you will experience as you follow the overload principle. And in order to guide you, there was something developed called the FIT principle, which stands for frequency, intensity, time, and type. And it can help determine the appropriate level of overload that you should be doing based on the exercises. So these are the 4 components of the FIT principle. So the frequency obviously goes without saying. It's how often you are active. And you should aim for 3 to 5 sessions of physical activity per week. The intensity will depend on how hard you are working. So this can be low, moderate, or high, depending on what you feel like doing that day, but also according to your plan. And the estimated maximal heart rate is usually something that is used to determine the level of intensity of an exercise. So it'll depend on where you are compared to your maximal heart rate. This will help us dictate whether this is a low, moderate, or high activity. And also, people use the Borg scale of perceived exertion, but these are things that are already predetermined beforehand. So then the next component is time, which is the duration of each session. So it needs to be typically between 30 minutes to 1 hour per day, as you saw. This will be different based on the type of intensity. And finally, the type, which is the kind of activity that you're performing. So it could be aerobic, resistant, or flexibility focused, depending on your personal goals. So this is now using, oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
If you're ever interested in it, it's usually for a healthy person, you do 220 minus your age. Okay. So if you're 20-year-old, the maximum BPM that your heart can technically go is 200, and then 90% of that is usually the maximum you should try to, the maximum you can reach doing sports. Okay.
Yeah, I will show a diagram about that a little bit later. So Yeah, so using the FIT principle to achieve your cardiorespiratory and musculoskeletal fitness and flexibility will change based on the type of activity. So as you see here, there are like 3 major rows and 3 columns. So if we're looking at the rows, we have the different types of pillars of physical activity, and in columns are the different pillars of the FIT principle. So if you're doing, if you're in the cardiorespiratory fitness, you need at least 30 minutes most days of the week. The intensity should be from 50 to 70% of your maximal heart rate for moderate intensity and higher for vigorous intensity. And then there are obviously different types of workouts that you can do to improve your cardiorespiratory fitness. When it comes to muscular fitness, it should be done fewer times a week, so 2 to 3 times per week. It is, as you can see, similar to a vigorous intensity for your maximal heart rate, so between 70 to 85 maximal weight you can lift. This is what you should aim for in order to get this vigorous intensity. And this will depend on the muscle groups that you want to work, so you should always focus on doing a little bit of all of your muscle groups, or you can split that into different days a week. There is also the flexibility part, which should be done 2 to 4 times per week. This is stretching through a full range of motion, and you should do between 2 to 4 repetitions per stretch and hold each stretch for 15 to 30 seconds. Or you can try some like stretching classes such as yoga, Tai Chi, or other flexibility programs. So if you've been listening, what does the acronym FIT stands for? Is it fatigue, intensity, and training? Is it frequency, intensity, and time? Is it flexibility, increase, and training? Is it fitness, input, and time? B? Good. You're listening. Now, I've talked to you about intensity, but I want to define what it is. So intensity refers to the amount of effort that is being spent, or how difficult the activity is that you are performing. So it can be described as low intensity activity, which how you can measure this is, can you talk comfortably while doing that? And so this can be like while walking, taking the stairs, and I hope you can talk comfortably while taking the stairs. So this also, like such as like house cleaning, stuff like that, that are usually cause a mild increase in your breathing and heart rate. A moderate intensity activity will cause a noticeable increase in your breathing, heart rate, and sweating. You can talk, but not continuously. So this could be like walking fast, doing water aerobics, or some sort of dancing that is not too fast-paced. Vigorous intensity activities will cause a significant increase in your breathing, heart rate, and sweating. Talking becomes really difficult. This could be while you're jogging, running, jumping rope, or doing aerobics, a regular aerobics class. So now, to talk about what is the maximal heart rate range. So basically, this is a heart rate chart that can be used to estimate the aerobic exercise intensity. So here on the y-axis, you have your heart rate, which is beats per minute. This is the unit. And on the x-axis is your age in years. So what is being shown in red, so like, or purple, the top line, it indicates the predicted maximal heart rate value for a person based on their age. And usually it is calculated as 220 minus your age. Here also I have a 70% and a 50% line. And you want to be in between that, depending on your age, for optimal training range. So this is what is generally recommended for physical activity. And this will help you improve your aerobic fitness. So what is the principle that I mentioned that states that you must gradually increase the demands on the body to improve fitness? Overload. Actually, no, but just for the first few, I guess. That's funny. And the last part of a sound fitness program is to include a warm-up and a cool-down, which are usually things that people tend to skip. But they are very important because a warm-up will help you prepare your body for the physical activity. It can include stretching, body weight resistant exercises. So like if you know you'll be working your legs today, it's a good way, maybe start by doing some body weight squats, or your upper body, you can do push-ups, pull-ups. And the benefits is that it'll help increase circulation, and you're gonna want increased circulations in the area that you're gonna work in order to ensure that the nutrients and energy are gonna be delivered to the area of activity. And it will also help enhance your range of motion and your freedom of movement. And also a cool down is very important at the end of your workout because it'll help prevent injuries and reduce muscle soreness, and it will promote the gradual recovery of the heart rate and blood pressure. It's not recommended to go from a very high heart rate to 0. So for example, if you're running, you should try to end your workout by maybe walking a little bit rather than just stopping all of a sudden. Yeah?
Yes, I have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
It's about mobility.
Mm-hmm.
Does mobility include in the warm-up or the cool-down?
So to increase your mobility, that'll probably come from warming up, because if you start by stretching your shoulder, for example, it'll give you a greater range of mobility once you're working out. Yeah. So what are the key elements of a well-designed program? Is it to perform the same exercise every day without taking breaks? Is it to align with your individual goals, be varied, consistent, enjoyable? Is it to focus only on intensity and duration? And is it to avoid rest days? Like, should you be working out every day? Yikes. No, I won't be able to know if you're actually paying attention. No, I'm sure you are. So far we've been talking about physical activity, and to tie this back to the nutrition course, you need fuel for physical activity. And where does the fuel come from? Well, it comes from different sources. So first there's adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, which I hope you heard about in other biology courses. There's creatine phosphate, or CP, there's glucose, and there's the triglycerides and fats, which is what I think most people would like to use in their physical activity to decrease in fat, but you will see that it's not as easy as it sounds, because maybe people usually advertise physical activity, it equals burning fat, but you'll see it's not that simple. The first molecule that your body prioritizes to use while it needs energy is ATP. And muscles will only store enough ATP to last them 1 to 3 seconds of activity, which is why it needs to be produced constantly. So here there's a diagram of what ATP is. So it's adenine, a nitrogenous base, a ribose 5C sugar, and then the 3-phosphate or the triphosphate chain at the end. So this is an overview that will show you all of the metabolic pathways that are carried out in your body that will result in ATP production during exercise. Some of them are aerobic and others are anaerobic, and we will talk about that in a little bit. First of all, ATP is produced from transforming glucose into pyruvate. Do you know what cycle in your body takes glucose and outputs pyruvate and ATP? Yeah, glycolysis, exactly. So this is one of the main pathway that the body will use to produce ATP, but also it only yields very few ATP molecules. So it's not the only thing that you want to rely on. Your body will also use the TCA cycle in your mitochondria, and the TCA cycle will produce NADH and FADH, which will ultimately release protons that will go on the electron transport chain and be passed through the complex 5, which will yield to ATP. Hopefully you guys are familiar with this. But basically your mitochondria is also responsible in producing ATP. But as I mentioned before, ATP will only give you enough energy for 1 to 3 seconds. So your body will also need sugars and protein and carbs so proteins in the form of amino acids that can be mobilized to produce ATP. So which of the following best describes how ATP provides energy to the body cells? Is it when a phosphate group is cleaved from the ATP molecules? Is it when 2 molecules of ATP combine? Is it when ATP is transported out of the cell membrane? Or is it when adenosine binds to the 3 phosphate molecules? What do you think? A. Okay, you guys are really listening because the answer wasn't B. So once ATP is exhausted, the muscles need to rely on other energy sources. And the second energy source that they will like is creatine phosphate, which will act as an energy reserve as it will help the body quickly regenerate ATP. So creatine phosphate is made of the amino acids arginine, glycine, and methionine. It is produced in the liver and then is transported to the muscles. However, this is something that is usually used to detect a heart attack. So if you have elevated levels of creatine phosphate, it will indicate a myocardial infarction, which will lead to a heart attack. And this molecule can supply energy for 3 to 15 seconds of intense physical activity. So this diagram here will show you how your body will use how it'll use creatine phosphate to give energy but also regenerate ATP. So when more energy is needed, this molecule will be broken down to support the regeneration of ATP. So creatine phosphate will be broken down into creatine and phosphate, which will release energy that your muscles can use. But also the phosphate that is released will be coupled to adenosine diphosphate to turn into adenosine triphosphate, which will help your body regenerate ATP. So this molecule is kind of cool because it provides energy on its own, but it also helps regenerate the main energy currency, which is ATP. Another source of energy that your body will use once it has used up the creatine phosphate energy is they will turn to glucose, and glucose will help regenerate ATP through the process of glycolysis. And during your exercise, glucose comes from 2 main sources. So it's from glycogen that is stored in your muscles, but also from the glucose that is circulating in your blood. But since the glycogen stores in the muscles are limited, it will not provide your body with energy for a very prolonged period of time. So this is a very, very simplified diagram of glycolysis. It's just showing how glucose will turn into fructose 6-phosphate, and this will consume 2 ATPs. But then from fructose 6-phosphate to pyruvate, this will release 4 ATPs. So in total, the glycolysis, every cycle will provide your body with 2 ATP. But also it will release other molecules such as pyruvate. And once oxygen is limited, pyruvate will be converted into lactic acid, which will be stored into, which will be accumulated during intense physical activity. And this excess lactic acid will be transported to your liver, where it will be converted back into glucose, and we will discuss that in a little bit. It happens through something called the Cori cycle. This is a little summary. I notice it's a bit blurry, but so this is a little summary of where the ATP comes from. So as I said, glycolysis will produce 2 molecules of ATP. So this is the major advantage of glycolysis is, though it only produces 2 molecules of ATP, it is the fastest way to generate ATP, other than the ATP creatine system that we talked about. But the high rate of ATP production can be sustained only for a brief period of time, so generally less than 3 minutes. And this is, and when your body needs to use energy for longer than 3 minutes, it will need to rely on some other metabolism that will help provide ATP, which is now the aerobic metabolism. So if oxygen is present, the pyruvate that was produced from glycolysis will be taken into so if oxygen is present, it will go into the aerobic metabolism, and it will help produce between 36 to 38 molecules of ATP through the TCA cycle. And this will help sustain you for longer duration workouts and moderate intensity exercise. And as we talked about before, if oxygen is absent, it will be in the anaerobic metabolism, which will be transferred to lactic acid. Though you see that this doesn't necessarily produce any ATP, as I said before, the lactic acid that is produced in your skeletal muscles will be shuttled back to the liver and will be transformed into glucose through the Cori cycle, and then it'll go back into glycolysis and produce ATP. So it's this nice cycle to regenerate ATP. So in athletes during endurance activities and in certain muscles like the heart or other types of muscles, lactic acid will be efficiently used directly as an energy source. So the more active you are, the more efficient this cycle is. Another source of energy that your body uses is fat, and this is the triglycerides that are shown here on the right, and they can be broken down to produce ATP. This is primarily used during low-intensity exercise, and it helps support energy needs for long duration activities. And it provides about twice as much energy per gram as carbohydrates do. And it serves as the main energy source during rest, light activities such as sitting, standing, and endurance events. So this is a nice diagram that is showing on the y-axis the percent contribution of energy source, and on the x-axis the exercise intensity. So it goes from rest to maximal exercise intensity. In green is your carbohydrate contribution, and in orange is the fat contribution. So when we are so it's important to remember that we are almost always using a combination of both. But at rest, carbohydrates are used a lot less than fat, and the opposite can be observed at maximal exercise intensity, where now your body is mostly using carbohydrates for energy. When we are now looking at the second graph, so on the y-axis is the total kilocalories that are being used here. And if we are looking at a low intensity workout, it looks like it's almost a combination of both fat and carbohydrate. But when the intensity increases, you are using more carbs than you are using fat. And so this is just showing you how those different molecules will contribute to the energy for different types of workouts. And here is a cool table that is showing examples of things that we talked about. So if you're doing something that is as short as from 0 to 3 seconds, you're using 100% of your energy is coming from the ATP or creatine phosphate. But on the other hand, if you're doing now, for example, a 10-kilometer race that takes between 30 to 40 minutes, you're using 100% of the carbs because you would have already taken up all of the ATP. And the longer the activity becomes, the more you are using. So the longer, but okay, this is not really good way to phrase it. So for example, in a marathon, because it is a longer activity, you'll be using more carbs than fat. But then when it's a day-long hike, so it's not a very vigorous activity at once, then now your body is using more fat than carbs. So it's always a mix of both when it comes to longer period activities. So there's a guy called Aaron, and every day he power walks for 45 minutes. And which fuel source do you think provides energy to his body during this activity? Is it amino acids and fatty acids, which is protein and fat? Is it fat and glucose? Is it protein and glucose? And is it none of these? Did I miss something? B. But why? It's not very intense, so your body doesn't use. So if it's not very intense, sure, it'll use both, but why not amino acids, for example?
Amino acids are used in times of starvation?
Yes, so they're only used minimally unless glycogen stores are low and the exercise is prolonged beyond long hours. So when your body goes into starvation, very good. So your body will use glucose as it is stored as glycogen in the muscles, but also from blood sugar, it will provide quick energy, and it'll use fatty acids to sustain this activity. So now your energy needs will obviously be different depending on the activity. So vigorous exercise raises overall energy requirements, but also athletes will have greater energy demands than non-athletes. And the energy that is needed will also vary between males and females. And there are key factors that will influence these needs, such as your body size, but also the type and the intensity of the physical activity that you are performing. So to relate back to nutrition, this is a table that is summarizing the different nutrients that are required and the suggested intakes amount to support vigorous exercise. So we already talked about energy, and in the next part of the lecture, I will be talking about the different nutrients separately and going more in depth in each one. So first of all, we'll talk about carbs, which are my personal favorites. And for athletes, carbs usually should make up between 45 to 65% of the total energy intake, but obviously this is going to be different for someone that is, let's say, is sedentary or just not an athlete. So you need to be prioritizing complex carbs that are minimally processed, such as whole grains, fruits, vegetables, and also it will help you provide valuable dietary fiber in your diet. Some people online, they keep talking about no carb diet, low carb diet, high protein, no carb. And this diagram here will show you why this is not really ideal for your body. So here you have on the y-axis the change in the amounts of muscle glycogen. And on the x-axis is the time in hours. So let's say you're doing a 2-hour cycling activity, and as you can see, also, yeah. So in orange is your high carbohydrate diet, and in green is your low carbohydrate diet. So for a 2-hour cycling activity, your glycogen level is going down, whether you're doing a high carb diet or a low carb diet. But as you can see, the recovery really looks different here. So if you're doing a high carb diet, you will recover the amount of glycogen almost to what you started with. But if you're doing a low carb diet, the recovery will be much lower. And then if you keep doing it, let's say you go on a 2-hour cycling activity every day, the recovery will never go back to where you were at start if you're doing a low carb diet. So over time, this will make you more tired, to get tired more faster. You'll get more tired and at a faster rate. It will make you maybe more sore. So it's always important to keep appropriate levels of carbs, as it will help you regenerate your muscle glycogen levels. Yeah. So the range that I talked about here, so between 45 to 65, this is for athletes. So when I'm talking about a high carbohydrate diet, I am within that range, and low is below that range. But the range will be different based on your level of physical activity. So this is just to give you an idea of how your recovery will look like, regardless of the specific numbers. But there are ranges that are published online following the Canadian guidelines that'll tell you how much should carbs make up of your diet if you do, for example, 2 hours of activities a day, or if you're preparing for a marathon, for example, which is what I'm going to talk about here. We often hear of something called carb loading, which is what athletes will do as they are preparing for long duration physical activities that will require more energy reserve than they usually use. So for example, if you're preparing for a marathon, you're obviously going to use a lot more energy than if you're doing a 5K. The carbohydrate loading is a strategy that will help maximize your muscle glycogen stores. So there are different tactics to do this, but one thing that the book for this class mentions is that you should begin about 6 days before the competition. So the first 3 days, you should still be exercising regularly, and you should have a reduced carbohydrate intake. But then for the next 3 days, so the last 3 days leading up to your activity, you should increase your carbohydrate intake to boost your glycogen storage. This will help your muscles recover during strenuous activities. So this is here a table that is giving you specific guidelines for how to perform carbohydrate loading. So as I said before, you should still be doing some physical activities the first 3 days. The time of exercise will be reduced as you get closer to your big competition, and the carb intake should still be moderate. So this is mentioning here 5 grams per kilogram of your body weight. So this would be, to answer your question from before, this would be like a good estimate of, if you're in the 5 grams per kilogram, then you're in the good carbohydrate range. And then as you get closer to your day of the race or your competition, you should really lower your exercise duration and really increase your carbohydrate consumption. So maybe double it or even a little bit more. Training will have effects on fat metabolism. So your metabolism rate is really very strictly related to the amount of muscles that you have in your body. So the training will enhance the muscle's capacity to store fat. It'll also increase the ability to draw fat from the blood for energy during exercise, and it will help conserve carbohydrate stores. And this will allow to provide energy for a longer period of intense training or competition. So next, I'm going to talk about protein. This is very important for competitive high endurance and athletes that will have higher protein requirements than regular people again. So well-trained individuals will probably need less protein than those that are just beginning a training program. And recreational endurance athletes will generally require proteins equal or slightly above the recommended dietary amounts that are, especially for people that have very low energy intakes or vegetarians whose diet are low in protein-rich food. So these people should really require more than what is recommended daily. So here are some sources of protein. So grains, nuts, dairy, salmon, chicken, meat. Also, this is something that I already said. We hear talking a lot of influencers talk about online the high protein, low carbs diet. This is not recommended as they will provide insufficient energy to restore your muscle glycogen and to sustain training and performance. So most people, regardless of their fitness level, will be able to meet their protein needs through regular foods without relying on supplements. Supplements are something that people usually choose to include in their training as well, and I will tackle that later on. So another very important component is fluids, and so water. And we always hear about you should drink water, it's good for you. But why exactly is it good for us? What does it really do in our body? Well, it will act as a lubricant that is really bathing our tissues and cells. It'll help transport nutrients, hormones, and waste products throughout the body. It participates in chemical reactions, and it constitutes a major part of your body tissues. It also helps regulate your body temperature. So through sweating, your body will regulate your internal temperature. So if you do not provide your body with enough amount of water, this will lead to dehydration and heat-related illnesses. So dehydration can lead to very serious situations, such as fainting, dizziness, but also muscle spasms and heat exhaustion and a heat stroke. And excessive sweating will cause weakness, nausea, dizziness, and headaches, and will also cause difficulty concentrating. So it's always important to drink water. And especially when you're working out, it's very important to make sure that you're drinking fluids before, during, and after exercise. And you shouldn't rely on thirst alone. So you shouldn't just drink water when you feel thirsty, but you should stay hydrated throughout the day regardless. And this usually happens in the winter because we're not really hot, but we should always be drinking water. And we should be drinking enough fluids to maintain our body weight during activity. So this is a cool depiction of the symptoms that cool depiction from your book about the symptoms of dehydration during heavy exercise. So you'll slowly start to notice that your performance is going down. You have increased levels of exertion. Your urine may get darker in color. You'll have an increased heart rate at given exercise intensity. So you notice usually that your heart rate is like, I don't know, at 150 when you do a certain exercise, but suddenly it goes up to 170, then this could be linked to dehydration. Your appetite will decrease, your ability to concentrate will decrease. You will have fatigue, weakness, and a headache and dizziness. So sometimes if you have a headache and you don't know why, maybe try drinking some water. It'll help you. So another component of your diet and your needs is vitamins and minerals. So I will talk about a few examples. So for example, vitamin B will support your metabolism and it will help you produce ATP. Calcium is essential for muscle contraction and maintaining strong bones. Iron is very important for hemoglobin production and energy metabolism. Vitamins C and E will help neutralize the increased reactive oxygen species that are generated through exercise. So reactive oxygen species, or ROS, are a very active area of research in a lot of diseases such as cancer. And these are usually generated in excess during exercise. So having a balanced diet where you make sure that you get all of the required vitamins will help neutralize those ROS molecules and keep you healthy. And these nutrients needs are usually met through a balanced, healthy diet, and they don't require a supplement. But that being said, if you feel like something is wrong, it's always good to get a blood test and make sure that your vitamin levels are within the required ranges for your age and body weight. So now we'll talk about ergogenic acids, which are the substances that some people choose to supplement themselves with, especially to enhance their exercise and athletic performance. And sometimes even people think about them as magic solutions, and they're not. So their effects will vary, and I will have a slide after I just define them and give some examples about how they can affect your body, but many of them are ineffective. And some can cause harmful side effects, and they're often very costly. And also, most of them will lack thorough scientific research on safety and effectiveness. But I think we're lucky to be in Canada, where our food safety is I think, good, especially compared to the US, where a lot of these substances are available over the counter, even though there isn't proper research done. But in Canada, it takes a bit longer for molecules like these to be available over the counter for everybody. So I will talk about anabolic products that are used to enhance muscle and strength. So there's anabolic steroids, which are testosterone-based drugs that will promote muscle growth. There are also precursors of testosterone that people usually take. So I tried saying this out loud to myself at home, and I don't think I pronounced it properly, so I won't, but you can read it. And also DHEA. There's also gamma hydroxybutyric acid and creatine, which is usually very common among athletes. It will help support the regeneration of ATP by replenishing creatine phosphate in muscles.
Anybody here of GHB? If you ever heard of GHB? Okay. Other than being used to make your performance better, it's also known as, unfortunately, a rape drug. Okay. So if you've seen those movies or those announcements from Health Canada telling you that people might put something in your drink, well, it's basically GHB. So just a little, it's transparent, basically just a little bit like this in your glass, and suddenly it has the effect of a few drinks to the point where you start like feeling like you can't move. Okay? There's a Canadian company, if I'm not wrong, that created this nail polish for girls that when you put it in your drink, it detects GHB and then your nail polish changes color. But it's also used for enhancing performance. Kind of a weird dual. Yeah. How do you enhance performance?
Yeah, sorry.
You want to go?
No, I think you have the answer. So.
So gamma hydroxybutyric. So everything that you take has a kind of a dose response curve, right? So as I told you earlier in the meeting in the office, there are things that when you take a low amount, they will actually be beneficial for you, and when you take them at high amounts, they have the opposite effect, right? For example, let's talk about fentanyl. Fentanyl is a narcotic, right? But it's also used for anesthetic effect. Okay? So depending on the concentration, it has different effects. Gamma hydroxybutyric acid has receptors in your muscle cells that at low dose, like it is used in this case here, can actually activate or improve the contraction of your muscles. Okay? But it's illegal, so don't. There are many things that it does on your musculoskeletal system.
Yeah, so also it'll also like cause sedation, so you won't feel your muscles being really tired. It causes euphoria, which will help you, sustain physical activity.
If you go to a fight with this,
Yeah, you'll probably be.
won't hurt as much.
Yeah, you'll be fine. So yeah, and the last point is creatine. So as you already heard about this, but creatine phosphate will replenish ATP. So if you ingest creatine, it will help support the regeneration of ATP in your muscles. Some other ergogenic acids, and one that you obviously all heard about and probably consume, is caffeine, which is a stimulant that will enhance fat metabolism during exercise, but it can also cause high blood pressure and insomnia, and it's very important to stay within the safe intake requirements or advice, which is up to 3 milligrams per kilogram of your body weight. Now, these are some other molecules. So there's ephedrine, which is a stimulant that was recalled in Canada due to safety concerns. There's carnitine, which is an amino acid derivative that will help transport fatty acid into the mitochondria to improve fat utilization in your body. There's chromium, which is believed to enhance insulin's role in glucose and amino acid transport for bodybuilding, but there isn't proven benefits that have been shown. There's also ribose. So if you remembered when I showed you the diagram of ATP, there was a 5-carbon sugar in the middle. So since ribose is a component of ATP, it is thought to increase work output and it aid in recovery. But again, there are no clear effects in athletes. And finally, arginine, which is claimed to increase muscle mass. But again, there is no clear effects, or the evidence is very limited. So now here is a slide from a paper that I found in the article in the journal Frontiers in Pharmacology. And basically it is showing the different adverse effects that those substances may have. So it has effects on the reproductive system. So in the female, so for example, if you take some testosterone precursor or testosterone, it can cause irregular menstrual cycles, and it can ultimately cause cancer. But also other substances in males will cause decreased endogenous androgen production. It can cause infertility and also leading to prostate inflammation or hypertrophy and prostate cancer. Those substances also have effects on your liver. So it can cause liver damage, it can increase your cholesterol levels, but mostly decrease the good cholesterol in your blood. Cardiovascular systems also have side effects from these molecules. So it can cause hypertension, thrombosis, it can cause sudden cardiac death, cardiac arrest. It also have effects on your endocrine system, so it can decrease glucose, for example. If it enhances glucose uptake, it will affect your endocrine system. It also has effect on your musculoskeletal health. So it can cause increased rate of muscle strains and ruptures. So as we talked, some of these substances can help you feel your pain less, which will increase the rate of muscle strains and increase the risk of the tendon, musculotendinosis. Also, it will have effects on your neuropsychiatric behavior. So it can cause mood swings, aggressive behavior, depression, psychosis, and some of these substances even cause withdrawal and dependency disorders. So creatinine will have effects on your urinary tract. So it can cause acute renal failure and also cause other diseases that are precancerous diseases. Also, it can affect your skin. So it can cause acne, it can cause alopecia, it can cause male pattern baldness, edema, and also some of these substances will cause deepening of the voice. So all this to say, try to avoid these substances. You will get everything that you need if you have a balanced diet, and make sure that you get your needs from all of the different components that we talked about from a natural way. Lastly, I will talk to you about energy drinks. So energy drinks are something that undergrads and grad students mostly tend to rely on. So these can be anything like a Red Bull, and they are very popular among students, especially now around exam performance. So just try to remember that these drinks will contain glucose, sucrose, and caffeine to increase your alertness, but also taurine, which is an amino acid that was discovered in bulls and believed to enhance mental performance. But athletes should avoid relying on these energy drinks for hydration because they do not provide the proper fluids needed during and after exercise. So one thing that you can do is maybe study throughout the semester, not cram, and have to rely on drinks like these to pull all-nighters and stuff like that. So, do you guys have any questions? Oh, thank you.